The WWE Unreal documentary is culminating in this fifth and final episode, and this was about WrestleMania. The first 36 minutes detailed how they went from setting up who was going to win at Mania and how the story was going to flow to giving us each person's journey through to Mania that we've seen up until now, starting with Jey Uso. Jey Uso was excited, of course, nervous, and just very, very much ready to prove that he was ready for this position, that he loved where he was, and that he was proud of everything that he was doing. And he did that. He had a great match with Gunther. Gunther put him over, and everybody was in the back watching, from Sammy to Kevin to Xavier, Ivar, all of them, mainly because they had their match next. But they were all back there watching, especially Sammy and Kevin. They were intently watching, as well as Xavier. He was like, just don't lose. You got to win. It's very, very interesting moment to see between the guys back there watching and enjoying and being so happy for one of their colleagues to win a prestigious award that doesn't get handed to everyone, um, a coveted award that doesn't get to be held by everyone. So to see Jey Uso get to that mountain and then be able to have his brother out there with him, I know it must have been overwhelming and it had to feel amazing and great. And Triple H congratulated him, told him he earned it, everything they had been through, everything they had done for the company. He had deserved it and he wanted him to relish in it and love it. And he did that. They took their picture and Jey Uso rode off into the sunset. He said it felt like he had 100 pounds on his shoulder, but he was ready to carry it and he was excited for what was coming next. And that's how Jey Uso ended his night as a world heavyweight champion. We get into Charlotte Flair, who was prepping and preparing for her match. And she made sure to acknowledge that she understood it got personal towards the end, but that personalness they had to bring into this match. And she knew what she had to do. This was a fight. This wasn't just a match. But Charlotte was making sure she had some time to herself to make sure she go over her coordination so she know what she would do. And then she went out there and she killed it for Tiffany Stratton. They were shocked that Tiffany Stratton lost a tooth, because she did. And Tiff was bleeding. She had some bruising from fighting up against Charlotte. But overall, Charlotte did her part well beyond what she could have and gave Tiffany a stellar match at WrestleMania. The two ladies hugged it out in the back. They hugged it out. They had their moment. And of course, she checked on Tiffany to make sure that she was okay, because you don't want to make it look like you intentionally injured anybody. She said, "Are you okay? Are you good?" She said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay." They all were worried because was bleeding and she lost a tooth. But they asked her if her teeth were real. She said, "No, they're fake." So, she said, "We all have fake teeth here." And they kind of laughed, and she went and got it fixed later and she got her tooth back. But she did lose her tooth. She did. Charlotte knocked her shit out. Rightfully so, bitch. So we got that. Throughout the day, we saw CM Punk was overwhelmed with emotion. He was, excited about his opportunity. He was, you know, finally getting to that moment made him feel like the kid that dreamed so freaking big. And now he's come to the pinnacle, and it's culminating of everything that he's ever done in his career. This is one of those moments. And he finally gets to go out there and headline WrestleMania. It had to feel surreal, and it did, because he was very emotional that day. They had to talk to him and kind of get him, to understand. And what I thought was very interesting was that he wasn't necessarily doubting himself. That wasn't what it was. It was just, I guess you could say it was happiness. He was happy and overwhelmed with joy that and there was it looked like there was a sense of accomplishment with him, but he still seeks the approval of those who, control the masses, especially somebody like Triple H. I think that in the grand scheme of things, CM Punk really admired Triple H, and he respects his opinion when it comes to wrestling. And he wanted his approval, and he got it. He went out there. He had the biggest entrance and the biggest pop of all three of them. They all went out there and they had a banger of a match that is rewatchable. It was really, really interesting. Very, very good. And when he came in the back, he was overcome with emotion. Becky was back there. She was very proud of her husband, Seth. Excuse me. And everything that he did to start this new wave of in this faction that he set up and this new storyline that was set up through Mania. She was just very proud, and she was just like, that was awesome. This, like, as a fan of wrestling, also as a wrestler for her, but it's an added layer as a fan to watch and see how things play out, and you're just like, this is the coolest thing you've ever seen. And it's really cool to see wrestlers fangirl out when they're watching wrestling as well. But if you've read Becky's book, then you know that this is what she lives for. This is her passion. Anyways, the deed is done, and the boys have put their hearts and minds on the line in this feud with each other, and everybody is happy with their end result. They congratulated Seth. It was convenient that they didn't really do a lot of talking with Roman. There wasn't a lot of talking with Roman in this doc. He wasn't a feature part or a focal part of the documentary, which I thought was very interesting. And neither was Seth. Seth had his moments. He had little pieces where he was a part of the conversation in terms of with Triple H or with the guys, but they didn't really focus on him. The focal points of the documentary leading into WrestleMania were those key players that a lot of people, I guess you could say, you wanted to know. I don't know what it was, but they didn't include Roman in this. And I would have liked to have heard his thoughts about it. I mean, Roman's pretty straightforward, but I would have liked to have heard what he thought about, being able to be a part of the story and to put people over. Like, I really would like to hear his thoughts about it. So I was a little disappointed that we didn't get a lot from Roman. I was happy with what we got from CM Punk. I love that. But I was disappointed in what we didn't get from Roman. But it was kind of similar to what was going on with Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte. They focused more on Charlotte. They didn't really focus on Tiffany Stratton, which is fine by me because I don't give a damn. Anyway, he got, like, CM Punk got to be cheered, revered, and loved in that ring, and he got to have his moment, which we love that for him. I'm ecstatic for him. I'm excited for him, and I'm hoping that this will lead to bigger and better things for CM Punk, even if that means him transitioning into the back or whatever after a few years. I'm happy that CM Punk got to get this and actually enjoy it and see it through. He didn't have to, like, piggyback off of nobody else. He got to come back to the WWE on his own terms, get that main event spot, have it fully executed to the 10th power successfully, and be able to relish in that moment all at the same time. I really, really love that. And I was so happy for CM Punk and for Seth and Roman and for Tiffany and Charlotte, but more specifically for Charlotte because I don't give a damn about Tiffany. And I was very, very ecstatic for Jey Uso. Now we're leading into the women's match for WrestleMania, and this was a triple threat. You had Io Sky, Bianca, and Rhea. And then there's the final match, which would have been John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, which that was my least favorite match of the night. But we're going to get into it. As we get into the second half of the WWE Unreal doc, you will start to see night two begin to take its shape. And the players in night two for the main events, obviously, were Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Bianca Belair, like I mentioned before, and John Cena and Cody Rhodes. So we start with Rhea, since Rhea was the first one we started with in the beginning of the doc. Also, we start with Bianca Belair. Io was there, but she was not interviewed, which I also thought was very interesting. I feel like you should have had conversation with everybody, but I'm not mad at it. I just would have like to have known Io's thoughts as well, you know? But they gave us Bianca, Io, and Rhea. We saw a lot of Rhea. Rhea went to an oddity shop and got her a nice little oddity that she called Chuck because it basically was a taxidermy wolf, I want to say, that had a dress and hair. Like Rhea Ripley enjoys her freakish, creepy little taxidermy collection. She loves it. And if it makes her happy, I'm happy. But that's not something I want in my house. Okay? I don't want that. But anyways, Rhea was talking about, you know, really wanting this particular match because Rhea, Io, and Bianca came up in NXT together. They were very close. They have been very close. And they've always wanted to have a moment where they wrestled each other either at Mania or just in general where they got to wrestle each other. And now they get to do it at WrestleMania in this triple threat style. And I'm not going to lie, the booking for it was a little wonky. I wish they would have polished that booking a little bit better. But the end result of that match was sensational. It was my favorite match of the entire show, of both nights. That match was the best match of the night. It was so good. It was so fun. And all three of them pulled out all of the stops in that match. It was insane how great that match was. Now, Rhea has a tendency to have really big panic attacks before the matches. And Rhea didn't have one this time. She felt really comfortable and safe in this match with Bianca and Io. And I think it has a lot to do with their rapport with each other, the love that they have for each other as friends, and the respect that they have for each other as colleagues. I think that Rhea was able to rest in that. There was no pressure for her to win or do anything in this match. So I think that also lent a lot of credence to how she felt. And I feel as though Rhea Ripley was able to enjoy this match a lot more because she had her two best friends by her side and she felt safe and calm with them. So she was just in her element, so to speak. The girls are back there getting ready. Io came out first, then Rhea came out, and then Bianca came out in the end, if I recall. Um, Bianca made it very clear that she's trying to go for 5-0, that she wanted to cement her legacy like the Undertaker, but unfortunately for Bianca, that legacy would be ended before it could even get started. She ended up losing in this match. If you hadn't watched WrestleMania by now, she ended up losing in this match to Io Sky, who ended up retaining her championship. And unfortunately, Bianca Belair's streak has ended. With that being said, Rhea Ripley had a killer red lipstick on, which I need to find out what that red lipstick was. But her red lipstick was fire. And she had an awesome crown with like skeleton hands that framed her face, which I thought was just cool. Like her entire setup was just really cool. And because she has these nervous, panic attacks and moments, Triple H, being the dad of this company and the dad of this talent, really went to her and said, "Hey, don't get in your head too much. You're the rock star and you got this. You are always going to go out there and kill it. Don't get in your head too much." And she says, "I know, but I just can't help it." Like, and he's just like, "Listen, nobody's better at this than you. You're the biggest star in this company. You've got this, and you need to make sure you remember that when you go out there." So Rhea Ripley seemed to be in her head a lot, but every time she goes out there, there's a calm that goes over her, and she's able to perform to the extent that she is expected. However, I really think that WWE should invest in some mental health help for their superstars, especially for these types of moments. Panic attacks and anxiety can be crippling to a person. And she's talking about winding down. The last time she did this, she was 2 hours in a full blown panic attack. No. There needs to be some mental health on staff to ensure that everybody is in the right state of mind and can perform effectively. I understand that this is kind of like Rhea Ripley's process, but if there's a healthier, better way to do this mentally, I think that she should invest in it. I understand that, you're going in front of millions of people on TV, millions, hundreds of thousands of people in the stadium, but this could be debilitating at one point, and you need to get a handle on it now before it gets worse. The match was so good. Bianca did jam her finger. She jammed it when they did the triple German into that moonsault. I think there was like when Io stood up and fell. That's when they jammed. Bianca jammed her finger. It got worse when Io jumped off the turnbuckle onto the two of them once she had Rhea pinned, and she had to eat the pin. Her hand got caught under Io's weight, and I think that's what caused it to break. And that's what caused the issue with her joints as well. So this match, how I don't care what anybody says, this match was awesome. It was so amazing. It was my favorite. It's still my favorite match of this year's Mania. Still my favorite match. The girls put on a stellar match, but this was Bianca's exit with her finger being broken, and she's been out of action ever since. She has not wrestled since then, as far as I can remember. Um, she's been there, but she can't wrestle. She can't bend her fingers. So the swerve, the things happens, the swerves is happening. Bianca was gonna be a part of, I think, Money in the Bank. She was gonna be part of that. There was still gonna be a feud with her and Naomi, possibly Jade and Naomi and Bianca. Like there was a lot that was planned, I think, but all of that got halted because of Bianca's current injury. Um, with that being said, I was very proud of Io Sky. She always performs well. And then you had Rhea Ripley, who, you know, is always in her head. She's a creature of habit, but she's more along the lines of someone who knows what she's capable of, knows what she wants, and goes after it, but she doubts and second guesses it as she's doing it. She is not insecure, but she just fears failing. She fears failing, and she doubts that she's good enough to do the job. And that's where Triple H, the dad in him, I guess, comes out, because these are like his children. He operates similar to the way Dusty would operate with the NXT kids at his when he was the guy of NXT, and they had Seth and Dean Ambrose at the time, aka John Moxley, and they had Roman and Biggie and all the other NXT class that was there. They were the kid, they were Dusty's kids. These are Triple H's kids. Triple H nurtured them and curated them from NXT to now. And to see them now become mega superstars over time, Triple H wants Rhea Ripley to understand that position and that role and understand that she was meant to be there. This didn't happen by happenstance. It happened because you're talented and good enough for the part. So he's very, very, I will say that he is very, very motivational in that part. He has a level of care for his superstars that I didn't expect to see in this doc, but I am glad that I saw it because it does give some credence to why they defend him so when they do. Um, he he loves them. I believe that he has a level of love and care for his superstars and how he treats them. And you can see it in how he talks to them, how he bigs them up, how he gives them props when they do well. And even when they're not doing well, he's telling them, hey, I want you here. You earned it. And now you've got to maintain it and keep it. Get yourself together so you can keep this. Otherwise, I'm going to have to give it to the next guy. Like he's very straightforward in that regard. And that part I can appreciate. And I'm sure that the superstars appreciate it as well. We also saw that this match was produced by Jason Jordan. And I find that Jason Jordan works very well with the women. He fully understands how to put on a stellar match, and he does it well, especially when he has premier talent to work with. This match was good, and he produced an unstoppable, amazing, over the top, fun match. He and TJ are some of my favorite producers. TJ produced the match with CM Punk and Roman and Seth. It makes sense. He produces a lot of great matches. When you're watching Unreal and you see them in the different seats, context is key. You can tell by how they react as to who produced who and what produced what. Now, I can't remember if TJ, I want to say TJ produced that match with CM Punk and them. I'm not sure if he produced Jey Uso's match or if it was CM Punk's match. I'm going to say he produced CM Punk's match. But if I'm wrong, y'all can correct me in the comments, honestly. But anyways, we're getting ready to finish this out. We got about 14 minutes left. And in this 14 minutes, this is going to detail the final events with John Cena and Cody Rhodes, which was my least favorite match of the night. And Cody's part in this was, you saw him, seeing all the John Cena fans. He talked to Bobby Roode, which I think Bobby Roode probably produced their match, which I'm kind of disappointed. But anyways, you saw him talking with Bobby Roode in the arena, and he was just like, I'm not mad that the fans are, that I'm on the defense here. I'm the away team. You know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at that. He said, I'm totally fine with being on the defense like that. And Bobby Roode was like, people want John Cena to win that 17th title. They want him to have that title on his way out. And Cody was like, I fully understand. His stance was, if it's a means to facilitate how we can make this work so that everybody goes home with a sense of that was fucking cool, he's okay with that. Even if that means him losing and having to fight to get his title back, to get back to the top of the mountain, then so be it for him. He was of the idea that, when the fans, he said sometimes they say the fans hijack the shows. Some of the guys and girls don't like it when the fans hijack the shows. And he was like, I'm of the school of thought that the fans are a part of the show. They are the that silver lining to the show. They facilitate how great or good a show is. Their energy, their hypeness, the over the top, they're a part of it. So I like to include them rather than to, facilitate or dictate how they should and shouldn't respond. And he made it very clear that that's how he was moving. And I'm okay with that answer. I think right now in Cody's career, he's here for the ride. Cody's okay with helping a legend get their moment and have their time to shine, because he already had his massive over the top moment. So it's not going to mean anything less to him that he is now giving somebody else an over the top moment time to shine. Cody had one of the biggest wins for a championship in WWE history. It will go down synonymous with some of the biggest Mania moments ever, ever. So I think Cody is just relishing in it because he's already had it. So watching the rest of this show, you're just getting the match with John Cena and Cody Rhodes. And I will say this, it wasn't that the match was terrible or anything. I just wanted it to be better than what I saw. And I felt like it could have been shifted a little. Triple H said something like it wasn't going to be the men's triple threat or the women's triple threat. I wasn't expecting that. Not at all. I mean, John Cena's older. He's not going to be able to perform at that caliber at all. He already talked about the pain that he's in with his knees and joints and his back from, doing this for over 20 plus years. So I fully understand that he won't be able to perform at that caliber. But I think that there could have been some minor tweaks to this match that would have just made it hit just a little bit harder and give it a little bit more love. I still think The Rock should have been a part of this. The Rock doesn't have to, be John Cena's, liaison, but he should loom over this the way that he had been looming over Cody this whole time. I do believe they're going to double back to The Rock with Cody at some point. They just haven't, figured out how they're going to do that. Um, and I also think that Travis Scott's, you know, if they're going to use Travis Scott, I felt like they shouldn't have gave him this brand dom entrance. It was unnecessary. Music playing and all that shit. I feel like he should have came in through the crowd, very similar to the way Jimmy came after Jay when he was going up against Roman. That's the way I would have done it because I think it would just had a better impact that way. It would have been something sneaky and quiet. It wouldn't have been so loud and boisterous and in your face. That's the only change I think I would do. I think that I understand why Cody was the good guy in this sense and was, performing the way that he was with the whole, struggling with knocking him out and doing the bad thing or being the good guy and not, focusing on that. And ultimately, him not pulling the trigger cost him everything. And in my opinion, I feel as though I would have let Cody cross that line right then and there. I would have, let him go the distance because I want to see if he has it in him. But I know that everybody else was like, I know that the grand scheme of things, trickling the breadcrumbs was better than just giving you the whole loaf of bread. You know what I'm saying? Overall, the match wasn't bad. The finish wasn't bad. I just wish there were minor tweaks to make me appreciate it more, if that makes sense. Well, John Cena ended up winning and became the champ, and all is right with the world. John Cena said something very important in this particular documentary, and he said sometimes WrestleMania isn't an end all be all of a story. Sometimes it is the middle of a story. Sometimes it is a point in time. He's right. However, I will say this. Chronicling everything leading up to WrestleMania was an ingenious idea, in my opinion. I think it was smart, it was interesting, and now they have the ability to start doing it again, which they probably will start at, I would start at Survivor Series. Or, I would start at SummerSlam and head all the way up until Mania. Make this doc a little bit longer. You know what I'm saying? Because I loved it. Overall, I would say that the documentary did really, really well at making us see, focusing on the superstars and how they felt about the time that they were in, the matches they were going into, and then when they finished what they started, the calmness and the sense of accomplishment that they felt. We also got to see how production pulls this together, and you don't really get to see a lot, but you get to see enough to understand how this works and how, much time and effort and how many people really make this go round. The one thing I will say that I disagree with Triple H about in the end is that, that there is no end to it. Like they just keep fucking going. Like they don't really stop. And he's like, sometimes you're just like, the exhausting part of this business is that it doesn't relent. And then the part that you do like is like, thank God that it doesn't. And in my opinion, I feel like you do need a break. You can have a storyline and end it on a cliffhanger. They do it on TV shows all the time. I think that you guys need at least 2 weeks after WrestleMania. You need a break. You need to be able to refresh. People need to be able to rest, get themselves together, possibly come into, the next Monday Night Raw without feeling like, you know, you are banged up, hurt, and everybody's like, but how would they continue the story? You're going to be anxious to see what they're going to be doing. I would have said a month, but a month may be too long to, stop. I feel like there should be a mandatory rest for all televised wrestling promotions. All major televised wrestling promotions should have a mandatory rest of 2 to 3 weeks after their biggest PLEs. You should have a rest. You should not be going into the next week starting up again or continuing a story. You need time to breathe and reset. People do it all the time with regular TV shows. It is not unheard of. They go on a sabbatical, they have their season finale, and then they come back during sweeps. It's not hard. And nobody's going to forget. Besides, you have the ability to capitalize on something called what? A recap. Okay? And you do it already with your video packages for Monday Night Raw right after Mania, right during SmackDown, NXT as well. Like you can still keep the basics of WWE and WrestleMania and everything in between, but give these superstars the break they so rightfully earned, especially when you're adding these other events along with WrestleMania with the parties and the um the roasts and everything. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. They need a break. They need to be able to recharge. They need to be able to reinvigorate themselves so that they can come back refreshed and ready to go. It's not hard to do. I feel like it is very, very possible. Somebody just has to be big enough to implement it. Overall, WWE Unreal was an excellent documentary. They did an excellent job at peeling back the curtain just enough to give you a little peek as to how things are ticking, but you don't have a full scale view of everything that they do. You only get a little bit. You only get a little bit. They give you a little sprinkle. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That's all. We are finished and done. Now, WWE Unreal is supposed to come back next year with a whole new chronicle. And I guess this is going to be leading up to WrestleMania again. I'm not sure of what they're going to be detailing this time. I think they should detail up to SummerSlam. I think that's a better play. You've got Naomi still with EO, Anby, and Rhea Ripley all in the same conversation. You've got the Queen and King of the Ring. You still have the storyline with Cody and John Cena. You have players like Randy Orton you could include in there. You could focus on the tag teams with tag team titles being so hyped like they were. It's a really good setup this first half of the year for Mania. And of course, you still have the Vision and Seth freaking Rollins and everything that they bring to the table. So I don't know. I feel like that would be a fun time. I feel like that would be a fun time. So I'm not sure what they're going to do next year to document, but I'm very curious and I'm definitely going to watch. People's opinions and assessment of the WWE Unreal documentary were completely wrong. They all thought that they were giving away too much and we're going to see everything and they're going to give us all the ticks and pulls. And they didn't do that. What it really focused on was people's mindset and their emotional state going into these big matches and big shows. It really focused on the people creating the stories that we see rather than how the stories. The how was a catalyst to the people. It wasn't the focal point. And that's what people didn't realize was going to be shown in this show. And I, for one, am very, very proud of the fact that WWE didn't give away all the trade secrets. They gave you a little piece. There was no way they were going to get away with not giving you something. They gave you something. They just didn't give you everything. And instead of them just doing it by match, like this is what we do, da 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 da, they gave you a more human approach to their shows than just going by the base and the mechanics of the actual show. So make sure you guys rate, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my socials, okay? Thank you so much for watching, and I will cover WWE Unreal next year the same way. I'll do an episode per each episode, and I will put them out on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the month, all right? Y'all make sure y'all rate, comment, and subscribe. Share my videos, and don't forget to hit that bell so you can be notified every time that I go live and every time that I post a new video. I appreciate y'all more than you know, and I will see you guys next time.